He thought he was saving a stranger from a plane crash, but she ended up saving his life in return. A mysterious woman with no name, a single father still grieving, and a town full of secrets. What if the miracle you're looking for is the one fate brings to your doorstep? This is a story of second chances, hidden identities, and a love that rewrites destiny. Stay until the end, because some stories don't just heal, they transform. Snowflakes drifted like whispers across the rugged peaks of Elkstone Ridge, blanketing the forest in a deceptive calm. Mason Reynolds, a 40-year-old widowed park ranger, was driving his weather-worn Jeep through the winding roads when the emergency radio erupted with static and urgency. All rescue units to Eagle Pass. Commercial aircraft down. Possible survivors. Mason's heart clenched. He'd faced avalanches, wildfires, and storms in his 2 decades on the job, but never a plane crash. In the back seat, his 9-year-old daughter Lily clutched her stuffed fox, wide-eyed. "Is it bad, Daddy?" He glanced at her through the mirror, swallowing the fear rising in his throat. "I have to go help. I'll take you to Mrs. Harper's, okay?" Mason's wife had died 3 winters ago in a landslide, and since then, Lily had turned inward, quiet, observant, always listening but rarely speaking. She was his world, and nothing mattered more. But duty called. As he approached the crash site, the scale of devastation stole his breath. Flames hissed in the snow. Debris glittered like deadly confetti, and just beyond a broken wing, his thermal scanner flickered. There, beneath the wreckage, a faint warmth, a pulse of life. Mason dropped to his knees, snow biting through his jeans as he clawed at the icy debris. His gloved fingers uncovered a pale hand, delicate, motionless. "I've got someone!" he shouted into his radio, breath catching. "East Quadrant, alive!" The woman beneath the wreckage was bruised, her dark hair matted with blood, but her chest rose faintly. Alive. Barely. He bundled her in a thermal blanket, whispering reassurances she couldn't hear. For a moment, her eyes opened, hazel, wide with fear, and locked with his before fluttering closed again. 3 days later, in Elkstone's tiny clinic set up inside the town's old firehouse, Dr. Harmon shook his head in disbelief. It's a miracle she survived. Concussion, broken leg, severe hypothermia, and no ID, no memory, not even on the flight manifest. As far as official records go, she wasn't on that plane. Mason stood silently by her bedside, watching the slow rhythm of her breathing. He told himself it was just responsibility. He found her, after all, but something tugged deeper. Something unexplainable. She awoke that evening, sitting upright, startled, her voice hoarse. "They said I don't exist." "You're safe," Mason assured her. "I'm Mason. I pulled you from the snow." "I don't remember anything, not even my name." Her fingers trembled as she pressed them to her temples. "It's all gone. Just flashes, screaming, cold, falling." Mason hesitated, then gently said, "Until we know more, how about we call you Ava?" Her lips quivered into the ghost of a smile. "Ava," she repeated. Later, Sheriff Monroe entered the clinic with a grim face. "The feds are coming in a week. Until then, she needs somewhere to stay." He looked to Mason. Ava glanced down, shame flickering in her eyes. "I don't want to be a burden." "You won't be," Mason replied before he could second-guess himself. "I've got a cabin outside town, quiet, safe." The rumors started immediately. The ranger who hadn't dated since his wife died, suddenly bringing home a mystery woman. Some said she was a fugitive. Others claimed she was a spy. But Mason didn't care. When Ava entered his cabin, leaning on borrowed crutches, Lily peeked from behind a doorway. Mason waited, breath held. Ava smiled gently. "Hi there." Lily's eyes softened. She stepped forward and reached out her tiny hand. That night, over soup and silence, something shifted. Ava's presence, though fragile, warmed the house in ways Mason hadn't felt in years. And in the quiet moments, with fire crackling and snow falling softly outside, Mason wondered, not for the first time, if fate had brought Ava to him not as a mission to complete, but as a reason to hope again. The winter moon cast a silver glow over the cabin as Ava stirred from a restless sleep, her breaths short and shallow. Then came the scream, raw, panicked, piercing the stillness like a blade. Mason bolted from bed, heart thundering. He found her tangled in blankets, eyes wide with terror, limbs thrashing. "Ava, it's okay, you're safe." He knelt beside her, hands steady but gentle. "It's me, Mason." Her eyes locked onto his, wild and glassy. "Don't let them take me," she gasped, gripping his wrist like a lifeline. "Please, don't send me back." "Back where?" he whispered. But she had already collapsed into sobs, curling into herself like a child. The next morning she remembered nothing, but the haunted look in her eyes lingered. In the weeks that followed, Ava began recovering faster, physically. She graduated from crutches to a cane, cooked simple meals, even taught Lily how to braid pine needles into little wreaths. Yet her memory remained stubbornly blank. Until one afternoon, while unpacking a forgotten box Mason had brought from the crash site, she found it. A locket. It clicked open in her palm. 2 faces inside. Hers and a man's she didn't recognize. Mason watched her carefully. "Is that someone you know?" Her fingers trembled. I think so. He feels familiar, but not safe." Then came the knock. 2 black SUVs pulled into the snowy driveway. 4 men emerged, 2 in FBI jackets, 1 in uniform, and 1 sharply dressed in a long wool coat. "Ava," the well-dressed man said with calculated calm. "Or should I say, Evelyn Whitmore?" She froze. "I knew it," Sheriff Monroe muttered under his breath. "I'm Richard Whitmore," the man continued, "your father." Silence fell like a thunderclap. Lily clutched Mason's leg, wide-eyed. "You vanished 2 months ago after fleeing an engagement. You've had us worried sick." Ava's hands clenched into fists. "Why was I using forged documents then? Why was I trying to disappear?" Richard's gaze didn't waver. "You were unwell, confused. I arranged help. You ran. You tried to marry me off like a pawn," she hissed. 32 years old and I had 0 control. The plane crash, my escape, wasn't an accident, it was survival." The agents looked between them, clearly unsettled. Mason stepped forward, protective. "She's been through hell. Whatever her past, she's not a danger to anyone. You don't get to sweep in and undo her healing." "She's my daughter," Richard snapped, "and she's coming home." "I'm not," Ava said, voice firm. "Not ever again." Later that night, as Mason secured the locks and checked windows twice, Ava sat by the fireplace, staring at the locket. "You believe me, don't you?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Mason sat beside her. "I do, and I'm not letting anyone take you away." For the first time since she woke in the snow, Ava allowed herself to lean into him, letting his warmth steady the storm still churning inside her. The days after Richard Whitmore's visit were thick with tension. Ava barely slept. Mason barely left her side. And Lily, bless her heart, did her best to act like everything was normal. But nothing was normal. Ava began keeping a journal, scribbling bits of memory as they surfaced. A piano recital at age 10, a boarding school in Switzerland, a black dress she wore to her mother's funeral. She saw flashes of cold marble halls, security details, and a voice, her father's, telling her to smile prettier, be quieter, marry smarter. For so long she had believed that forgetting her past was a curse. But now she began to see it as a gift, a clean slate. "You were never just someone's daughter," Mason told her one morning as they hiked a gentle trail behind the cabin. "Or someone's property. You were always you. You just needed the space to find her." She didn't reply at first, but then she reached out and took his hand. Later that afternoon, Ava cooked dinner. Rosemary chicken, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. Mason stopped in the doorway, watching her move confidently, gracefully. She hummed a tune under her breath, unaware. "She's different," Lily whispered, tugging his sleeve. "But like the real her." He nodded. "I think she's figuring out who that is." As winter melted into spring, Ava transformed. She started volunteering at the town library, helping kids with reading. At the diner, she remembered every customer's coffee order. She planted a garden behind the cabin, working the soil with her hands like it was therapy. One night, as Mason sat by the fire reading, she joined him with a photo album she had pieced together using donated prints and new memories. In it were pictures of Lily's science project, snow angels in the yard, the garden's first sprout. "This," she said, pointing to a photo of the three of them laughing over burnt pancakes. This feels real. He looked at her, heart thudding. It is. Her gaze dropped. I keep thinking about the woman I used to be. I had everything, money, status, power, but I never had this. I never felt safe or seen. You are now, he said quietly, and not just by me. Ava's perspective had shifted. What once felt like a fall from grace now felt like a rise from captivity. Her name, her past, her wealth, it no longer defined her. She was becoming someone else, someone stronger, someone free. And perhaps the greatest revelation of all came not in the quiet moments of healing, but in the joy she found in teaching Lily to dance in the living room, barefoot on wooden floors, laughter echoing off the walls. She had not only survived the crash, she had emerged from it with something priceless: clarity. Spring came early to Elkstone, melting the last of the snow and coaxing blossoms from the apple trees behind Mason's cabin. Life began to breathe easier, warmer, and for the first time, Ava wasn't just surviving. She was thriving. That's when the letter arrived. It came in an unassuming envelope postmarked from a law firm in Denver. Inside was a summons, an emergency guardianship hearing filed by her father. Richard Whitmore wasn't done, and this time he was playing the long game. He's calling in specialists, Mason's friend, a former Army buddy turned small-town attorney, explained. Psychiatrists, family therapists, character witnesses, all on his payroll. He's painting a picture of mental instability. He's trying to take back legal control. Ava stared at the documents, her fingers trembling. He wants to own me again. No, Mason said, firm. He's just afraid, because you're not afraid anymore. But doubt lingered. What if he wins? Mason's voice softened. Then we keep fighting. Because the woman sitting here now, she's not broken. She's a force. Word of the hearing spread through town like wildfire. Most folks rallied behind Ava, organizing a potluck fundraiser for legal fees, gathering testimonials. Mrs. Harper, the same woman who once babysat Lily, brought over a binder filled with signatures. You're one of us now, she said simply. But there were whispers, too. The Whitmores were powerful. Ava could be dangerous. What if she was lying? You sure about this? Mason asked her on the eve of the hearing. I need to choose this, she whispered, eyes wet. Not just run. I need to stand up, not just for me, but for Lily, for anyone who's ever been told they don't get a say in their own life. That night, Lily slipped a crumpled drawing under Ava's door. It was a picture of 3 stick figures, a man, a woman, and a child, holding hands beneath a big yellow sun. The label underneath read, My Family. Tears filled Ava's eyes. The morning of the hearing, the courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. Ava sat straight, chin high. Mason and Lily flanked her. Across the aisle sat Richard Whitmore and his polished legal team. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with silver hair and a reputation for justice over prestige, listened quietly as Richard's attorneys made their case. Doctors cited dissociative trauma, references to unstable behavior. She needs structure, they argued. Supervision. Then came Ava's turn. She spoke with clarity and calm. I was born into privilege, but not freedom. I escaped, yes, but I also healed. I built a life here, on my own. I am not mentally ill. I am not dangerous. I am someone who finally knows who she is. The judge leaned forward. And who is that? Ava smiled. Someone who chooses love over control, roots over riches, truth over silence. And in that moment, the courtroom wasn't just a place of legal reckoning. It was the birthplace of a new life. The hearing ended with a bang, Judge Connolly's gavel falling as she dismissed the petition for guardianship. The courtroom stirred, a mix of surprise and approval washing over the crowd. Ava didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just exhaled, long and steady, as if letting go of a lifetime held in silence. Outside, the mountain air was crisp, sun gleaming off the wet stone steps of the courthouse. Mason and Lily stood beside her, steady and proud. You did it, Mason whispered. Ava looked at them both. No, we did it. In the weeks that followed, something subtle but powerful shifted. Ava stopped second-guessing herself. She no longer waited for permission to speak, to decide, to feel. She started teaching free creative writing workshops at the library, stories as therapy, as truth, as reclamation. She officially changed her name to Ava Carter. Her past didn't vanish, but it stopped controlling her. One Saturday morning, Lily tugged on Ava's sweater. "Can you come to school for Family Day?" Ava hesitated, her heart pounding. "I want to show them who I live with," Lily added, smiling shyly. Ava knelt down. "I'd love to." Later that day, she and Mason stood watching Lily perform a poem in front of the class. She looked so proud, so radiant. It hit Ava all at once. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a role model, a protector, a mother figure. Mason glanced at her. "You okay?" Ava wiped her eyes. "I'm better than okay." One evening, as spring turned to early summer, they sat on the porch while fireflies danced through the yard. The garden was alive now, tomatoes, basil, daisies, all planted with hands that once trembled with fear. "You ever think about going back?" Mason asked, not accusingly, just curious. Ava shook her head. "I don't miss the mansion, or the name. I thought power meant being feared. But real power—" She gestured toward the house, toward Lily's laughter echoing through the windows. "Is peace." Mason nodded, silent. "I used to look in mirrors and see nothing but someone my father created," she continued. "Now I look and see me, just me. And I like her." He reached for her hand. "I do too." They didn't need grand gestures or declarations, just quiet moments like this. Shared glances, gentle silences. And slowly the woman who had fallen from the sky into his world became the anchor that steadied it. Ava Carter was no longer the mystery from the mountains. She was the writer leading library hours. The woman who knew how Lily liked her grilled cheese. The soul who painted old cabinets yellow and danced barefoot in the kitchen. The survivor who taught others that scars were just proof of healing. And in the quiet rhythms of life, meals shared, gardens tended, walks taken, Ava found what had eluded her for so long. Not a past to reclaim, but a future to build. The summer sun dipped low behind Elkstone Ridge, casting golden light across the valley as the townsfolk gathered in the square. It was a quiet celebration. No banners, no speeches, just family, friends, and a judge in a simple robe, smiling warmly. Ava Carter stood hand in hand with Mason, her hair swept up with daisies Lily had picked that morning. She wore a soft white dress, the same one she'd found in a second-hand store the week before. No designer gown, no paparazzi, just something that felt hers. Judge Connolly cleared her throat. "We are here today to witness a union built not from wealth, but from healing. Not from tradition, but from choice." Mason turned to Ava. "You saved my life the day you stepped into it. Before you, Lily and I were surviving. Now, we're living. I vow to protect you, to honor you, and to build a life that always feels like home." Ava blinked back tears. "I ran from everything I knew. I thought I had to disappear to find myself. But in your cabin with your daughter, I found what I was missing, belonging. I vow to stand beside you through all seasons as your partner and your family." Lily stepped up as best Lady of Honor, handing them each a small carved wooden ring, crafted by Mr. Henderson, the retired carpenter who insisted on contributing. "You may seal your vows," the judge said. They kissed, soft and sure, as cheers erupted through the crowd. That evening, laughter echoed through the woods behind the Carter cabin. Tables were lined with casseroles, homemade pies, and jam jars full of lemonade. Music floated through the air, played by Ava's new library friends. Kids ran barefoot through the grass. Mason's loyal old dog barked at fireflies. Ava stood in the garden, her dress dusted with pollen and joy, watching Lily show off a cartwheel to some of the neighbor kids. Mason joined her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "So, Mrs. Carter," she laughed, "still feels strange." "Good strange?" "The best kind." They wandered down the familiar path behind the house, now their house, feet bare, hands intertwined. At one point, they stopped to look at the carving Mason had made on a low pine. MC plus AC equals home. Ava leaned her head on his shoulder. "You ever think about fate?" "I used to think it was just a word people used when they couldn't explain something. And now? Now I think fate brought you to that crash. But love brought you home, she smiled. That's poetic for a ranger. Living with a writer will do that. The stars twinkled overhead. A warm breeze rustled the leaves. And as they walked on, 3 shadows dancing in the moonlight, Ava knew that the woman she used to be was gone. But in her place stood someone stronger, kinder, whole. She didn't need the Whitmore name. She didn't need the fortune. She had something far more rare: peace, purpose, and a family that chose her every day. Sometimes the miracle we need isn't something falling from the sky. It's someone crashing into our lives when we least expect it. Ava Carter's story reminds us that survival is just the beginning. True healing begins when we're seen, heard, and loved without condition. She lost her memory, her identity, and her past, yet found everything she needed in a small mountain town: a man learning to love again, a child yearning to trust, and a quiet community willing to stand beside her. It teaches us that strength doesn't come from status or name. It comes from choosing ourselves every single day. Even when the world demands we conform, silence ourselves, or return to cages we've escaped, choosing freedom is the ultimate act of courage. And sometimes, our greatest transformation begins not with remembering who we were, but with deciding who we want to become. If you've ever felt lost, unsure of your place, or burdened by the weight of others' expectations, remember Ava's journey. You don't need to have all the answers or a perfect plan. Sometimes, walking away from what's familiar is the first step toward building something beautiful. Surround yourself with people who see you for who you are, not who they want you to be. Create your own definitions of love, home, and success. And above all, believe that you're worthy of peace, happiness, and a second chance. If Ava's story moved you, give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs hope. Subscribe for more powerful stories of redemption, resilience, and unexpected love.